Good evening, San Diego. I'm Chief Meteorologist Carlene Chavis, and thank you for tuning in for your CBS 8 Plus weather update. Well, it was a pretty nice start to the week talking about high pressure building in. That's right behind the low pressure system that we had that was last week and unfortunately wreaked havoc across our nation. A lot of cold temperatures are left over. We're talking about 20 degrees below zero in portions of Texas, extending in towards Arkansas as well as they are dealing with the wind chill. So not just the fact that the temperatures are cold, but then you also have to factor in what it feels like. Also, with those cold weather alerts that are extending all the way along the East Coast, they're going to be dealing with that for much of this week. And it really takes us into about the middle of the week when it comes to any of those alerts. So we'll continue to keep you posted. But on the backside of that, you now have an area of high pressure that's over the west. And so that brought warmer temperatures. We had more sunshine in our forecast for yesterday with the return of Santa Ana winds back in the forecast, and it led to temperatures warmer than usual. Widespread 70s west of the mountains for today and 68 degrees for Borrego Springs. Actually just a few degrees below seasonal for this time of the year. Then we get into our forecast for tomorrow. Tumbling temperatures as we do have clear sky out there, and that leads to those temperatures going right back into widespread 40s for our overnight lows. 43 degrees expected for Escondido, 48 degrees for Poway, 46 degrees expected for Chula Vista. You also have some 30s popping up, and where you have 30s, you also have the potential of getting some patchy frost developing. So 33 degrees expected for Ramona at that freezing mark for Mount Laguna, 39 degrees for Campo, 39 as well for an overnight low for Oceanside. Your daytime highs for tomorrow will be right there in the 70s again, staying put for a little while, especially as we go into the forecast for this week. So 70s and 80s really dominating as warmer than usual temperatures do stick around in our forecast. You have 71 degrees tomorrow for Valley Center, 75 degrees expected for El Cajon. You have the upper 60s right there along the North County coastline. You also have 70 degrees for downtown, 1 degree more for a high tomorrow for Chula Vista at 71. Your surf forecast about 1 to 3 feet, also a low risk of rip currents at our local beaches. So as I mentioned, we had the Santa Ana winds pick up in the forecast over the weekend. That brought some of those gusts into the 20s as well as the 30s. Now, as we kicked off this week, we still had those Santa Ana winds out there. We were not talking about a strong wind event, but it did help to dry us out, and also the reason that we're going to have these tumbling temperatures. So dry air is out there. You had peak wind gusts for today that were in the 20s for Campo as well as for Julian, and you also had those wind gusts picking up west of the mountains in the teens. We're going to continue to have bouts of Santa Ana winds in our forecast throughout the week. The only day that changes up is on Wednesday. That's because onshore flow is going to pick up just temporarily, and then we get right back to offshore winds, and also talking about the warmer than usual temperatures. So we have wind gusts that we're picking up today, and that's going to go through tonight. They've actually started to calm down a little bit more for tonight, but we had those gusts, as I showed you, into the 20s, upwards of about 35 miles per hour in spots along coastal mountain slopes, calming down as we hit tonight. But still looking at periods of some weaker Santa Ana winds in our forecast that bring those gusts into the teens and 20s, especially along coastal mountain slopes. That will lead to some lower humidity values, and that will be by the second half of the week. You have those values coming down to about 10 to 20% in the afternoon hours. We even had that earlier today for us, and we'll see that recovery into the overnight hour, especially along the coast. Now, fire weather concerns will remain low, and that's because we still have a lot of that fuel moisture being high because we had the very active pattern as we wrapped up the year for 2025 and into the start of this new year. And because of that, we still have high fuel moisture, so therefore not really talking about a high risk when it does come to having fire weather concerns out there. It is relatively low because we are still pretty damp out there. You have an area of high pressure in our forecast. As I mentioned, it weakens just a little bit as we hit Wednesday's forecast. Tuesday still holding on to that ridge. Wednesday, we start to have this weak disturbance moving through the Pacific Northwest. As a result, it weakens that ridge of high pressure just a little bit, but then it amplifies more, and that's going to be by the second half of the week. But on Wednesday, because of that weak disturbance that moves through, we'll see more added high clouds, still warmer than usual temperatures, but they'll take a little bit of a slip as we go from roughly about Tuesday into Wednesday in the afternoon hours, and then those temperatures really start to warm up as we hit Thursday into the start of the weekend. For your extended forecast, you have widespread 70s, and that's mainly dominating. That's the temperature range for the coast all the way into next week. There's that minor dip, and that's going to be on Wednesday as that area of low pressure sweeps by to the north of us, adding in more clouds, and then we get right back to the warmth, back into those widespread 70s. That's going to be for the coast. The peak of the heat looks to be on Friday at 76 degrees for the coast. And then you have a gradual slip in temperatures that will take place over the weekend as we have another area of low pressure that kind of chips away at that ridge. You have the 70s for the next couple of days in the afternoon hours for the inland valleys, and then you're right back into those 80s. For the inland valleys, that puts you about 10 to 15 degrees above seasonal for this time of the year, and that's how we're going to wrap up January and go into the start of February. You have 80s back in the forecast Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. 70s look to return. That will be by the first day of February, 79 degrees on Sunday, some added cloud cover. Those temperatures start to slip a little bit more into the start of next week. You have 50s for tomorrow for the mountains. You're back into the 60s on Wednesday. You stay in that range all the way into next week. You're in the upper 60s to kick off the weekend, and 70s for the desert turn into 80s with that area of high pressure building overhead. So by Friday, back into the 80s. That lasts through the weekend for the desert, and you're back into the 70s with a little bit more cloud cover moving through in the afternoon hours by Monday of next week. I hope you have a great night, and thanks for tuning in.